Welcome to another edition of A Week of Mass Shootings. There were 11 mass shootings reported this past week, which brings us to a total of 116 on the year. We start on April 10th in Washington, D.C., where one was killed and 5 injured. 2 of the victims were under the age of 12, and 29-year-old Aubrey McLeod was the one that was killed. It happened in the Carter-Langston neighborhood, and basically the shooters got out of a car and opened fire from across the street. And this shooting happened around 6:10 p.m. On April 11th in Orlando, Florida, 1 was killed and 3 injured. And this is the second one for Orlando this year. All the victims were males in their 20s. 23-year-old Kyrion Travalius Daniel Bradford was the one that was killed. And this is considered a targeted shooting. There's no suspect information. This one happened at 8:30 p.m. On April 13th in Chicago, one was killed and 10 were injured, and this is a 6th one for Chicago this year. 9-year-old Ariana Molina was the one that was killed, and 3 more under the age of 9, including a 1-year-old, were injured, and they're calling this likely gang-related. They found 75 shell casings at the scene, and this was a confirmation party, I believe, for the girl that died. And this one happened at 9 p.m. So far, all of these happened between 6 and 9 p.m. So they weren't real late night shootings. They all happened in the evening. Also on April 13th in Coldwater, Mississippi, 1 was killed and 3 injured. And this is the first one for Coldwater this year. This happened in a home in North Mississippi around 4 a.m. And there's no suspects in custody on this one. On April 13th in Wynne, Arkansas, 1 was killed and 9 were injured. This is the first one for Wynne this year. 27-year-old Varian Campbell was the one that was killed, and this was a block party, and this one happened at 10 p.m. On April 13th in Albany, Georgia, 4 were injured. This is the first one for Albany, Georgia this year. It happened at Big Daddy's Lounge and Club. All the victims were adults, and 2 suspects were arrested, 25-year-old DeCarlos Walker and 26-year-old Malik Marshall. They're calling this one gang involvement, and police have secured warrants for 6 more suspects. All right, April 14th in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, 4 were injured in the first one for Hopkinsville this year. The suspect, 23-year-old Stephen Bussell, was arrested. This was a drive-by, and the victims were 3 juveniles and 1 adult. Also on April 14th in New Orleans, 1 was killed and 11 injured. This is the 4th one for New Orleans this year. The one that was killed was an adult female. The shooting happened in front of a nightclub during some kind of festival. Also on April 14th in Dallas, Texas, 1 was killed and 8 were injured. This is the second one for Dallas this year. 21-year-old Carisha Bradford was the one that was killed. And this was a party at a rec center, and they're calling this one gang involvement. There's been quite a few this week that were gang involvement, more so than usual. April 14th in Nashville, Tennessee, 6 were injured in the second one for Nashville this year. The victims were all aged between 18 and 24. It happened at the Soto Lounge. 24-year-old suspect Eric DeJuan Williams was arrested. An argument basically started, and the suspect was out on bond at the time of the shooting. So this is another one of those where when they don't keep these guys in jail and they know eventually they're going to go to jail, they go out and they kind of cause a lot of havoc while they're free because they know eventually they're going to jail for a long time. So they get out on bond and then they do stuff like this, mass shooting, and they injure 6 people. But that's just kind of, when you let violent people out on bond, you kind of have to expect that kind of stuff to happen. Okay, our last one on April 14th in Richmond, Virginia, 1 was killed and 4 injured, and this is the first one for Richmond this year. It was a 16-year-old male that was killed. This one happened in the middle of the afternoon at 3:20 p.m., and it happened just outside a housing complex. The 16-year-old that was killed is the 4th juvenile killed in Richmond this year so far, and that's a high number of younger people being killed at this early in the year.